Let me put this over here. Okay, let's see if we get feedback. Get feedback from that one.
It's from the one behind you.
Yeah, turn it off. We'll turn it off, I'll hear this. Okay? Okay. Ready? Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Okay, thank you for coming. We appreciate you coming. My name is Michael Imagelli, and I've been asked to introduce someone who wants to represent us up in Tallahassee. When I usually do this, I'm usually introducing someone who is a business person, a lawyer, an insurance agent, or a politician who is looking to run for re-election. Today is different. Today, I'm going to introduce you to someone who is one of us. Now, why is she one of us? She's the president of her Democratic Club. She volunteers for the two biggest fundraisers in Palm Beach County, Democratic Club, our dance and our golf club. She volunteers every Thursday morning to our Democratic headquarters in Del Rey. So this is very unusual because she is one of us. I'd like to introduce you to someone I'm going to vote for to represent us up in Tallahassee, Mindy Koch. Mindy?
So good morning, everybody. How nice to see you all here on this beautiful Sunday morning when it's still not raining. So, and I hope it's not raining for a while yet. We need some sunshine. So I'm curious to know how many of you here are retired teachers? Yeah, there's a lot of us. I'm a retired teacher. I taught for 40 years here in South Florida, a couple of years in Pittsburgh, a few years in Birmingham, Alabama, but most of my career I spent here in South Florida. I know the trouble we have with schools. I have to tell you that as a child, learning was not very easy for me. I struggled a great deal in reading, and in fact, probably my daughter doesn't even know this, I didn't read a real book from beginning to end until I went to college, and somehow took Survey of American Literature, and I had to read 12 books in the first semester. I went, what were you thinking? And so I began to read, and I discovered how fabulous it is to be able to read a whole book. The other learning disability I had was I reverse numbers, and I can't add the straight column down. And so I've taught myself over the years how to do all those things. My mother called me lazy, careless, foolish. You didn't study. So I had to teach myself how to learn. Out of that was born a desire to help other children learn what I struggled to figure out. And when I graduated undergraduate school in 1975, they had just passed this law called Public Law 94-142, which certified all special education. 94-142, that was it, and it was called All Handicapped Children's Rights Law. And so I became a special educator, and that's where I spent most of my career, either leading programs. I was not an administrator, I was always a teacher, because I believe those who can teach, those who can't become principals. And so I spent all my time as a teacher, but I was in an office for many, many, many years, leading programs for our kids with learning differences. So that's my teaching career. While I was in teaching, I was very active in the Broward Teachers Union and the Classroom Teachers Association here in Palm Beach County. I was a lead steward And when I worked in Broward County, I became their PAC endorser, so I endorsed people like me. So I can tell you anything you want to know about anybody in Broward County as well. But what I learned was, as the time passed, we got less and less funding and more testing. You see the relationship? We can't fund kids and education and teachers if we're very busy making testing companies very, very rich, which is what we've done. So I believe we should fully fund all public education, and teachers need a raise. They haven't had a raise since 2006. That's 10 years of not having a raise. During that period of time, in the economic crisis there in 2007, 8, and 9, the Florida legislature decided to change the Florida pension plan as well. And teachers who began in 2011 or after, actually all teachers have to pay their own pension. Retirement is now 35 years. Not 25 like it used to be, or 30 like it was after that. So teachers have to pay their own pension at 3% a year. Also, teachers are at-will employees. There is no more tenure in the state of Florida. They would have fired me in a heartbeat. I never would have made it. Never. So that's schools. So we need to figure out a way to fully fund schools, and enough with the charter schools already. Enough. So we also have the security issue that kind of leaked out into all of our communities with the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas tragedy. And although the bill they presented and passed was pretty good, one of the things it had in it was arming teachers. So here's the thing. If I'm a school teacher, which I was, so I put myself in their place, and it says training for 136 hours, which is great. I'll be the best shot ever because I can learn anything. I mean, I can play golf and I only hit fairways and greens, so I can learn anything. So they'll teach me how to aim my gun, and they'll teach me how to pull the trigger, and I'll be a very good shot, I promise. But here's the question. When the invader comes into my classroom and I do this, there's only one thing to do, and that's pull the trigger. And I'm not sure I can do that. And what that bill did was blew the doors off of what they called campus carry, because that's coming back, and that'll put guns in the hands of students at colleges and universities around the state. So the conversation should be more on safety and how we're going to secure our schools and do all those kinds of very important things. And mental health, which nobody seems to think is important enough to fund. It's really important, but it means nothing if you have no money behind we have to do this. So all these unfunded mandates that they've passed to us, Palm Beach County School Board is going to put a millage increase on your November ballot. So if you want all of those things, you're going to have to decide whether it's worth paying for or not. Also, during the hurricane, it became very apparent that all of us, because I'm one of you now, my birthday was July 21st, and I got my Medicaid card. Medicare, sorry, but I was going to talk about Medicaid, but that's okay. My Medicare card. During the hurricane, we saw the tragedy that happened down in Hollywood. Why all this happens on the East Coast, I don't know. Just so you know, if you have a mother, a father, an aunt, an uncle, a sister, a brother, a family member of any kind in a nursing home or an assisted living facility, an ALF, here in the state of Florida, they had to put generators on their property and give an emergency plan. 16% of the nursing homes around the state of Florida have actually done that. They are mostly Catholic homes and Jewish homes, but the regular businesses haven't really figured that they need to do that yet. If you ask to see the emergency plan at the office, they will tell you they applied for an extension. Applying for an extension means they're in compliance, but they haven't done anything. So they're still not thinking about us first, they're thinking about us last. And that won't work anymore for me. We have between 730 and 800,000, 900,000 uninsured Floridians. Many of them are over 65 because they didn't take, our governor chose not to take the Medicaid expansion. No excuse. Medicaid expansion. It was worth $91 billion a year. The federal government paid most of it, and we decided, nah, we don't need that. So we didn't take it. So we have between 730 and 900,000 uninsured Floridians, and that's unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. You know that on this next ballot, not this one, how many of you got a ballot? Oh, very good. Don't take a picture of yourself voting the ballot. That's illegal. It's a misdemeanor. You could take the picture, but you can't post it. So don't put it on Facebook or any place because it's a misdemeanor here in Florida to take a picture of a ballot. You know, it's for counterfeiting purposes. You know, you get it, right? On the next ballot, the November 6th ballot, you will see a restoration rights amendment, and that restores the rights of felons here in Florida, because we have 1.6 million felons who have not had their civil rights restored since they served their sentence for their nonviolent crime conviction. Some of them were 18 or 19 when they kited a felony waycheck, and their boss decided to press charges on them, and haven't committed a crime since. They're in their 40s, they've passed law school, they have 3 children. They can't do 2 things. One is pass the bar, because you can't take the bar as a convicted felon without your record being expunged. And they can't, you're gonna love this, they can't vote either, but they can't go to their children's school as a volunteer. Pollys Law. They can't come to the school as a volunteer.
What's the law again?
I think it's Pollys Law. Okay? No felons allowed in a school who haven't had their rights restored. And finally, this is not totally the issue here in this development, but in the rest of the state, we have very little affordable housing. Everything is $350, $500, $725, whatever. It's a fortune. And so I'm going to work very hard to put into a legislative piece restoring it's called the Sadowski Trust. The funding for the Sadowski Trust comes from your doc stamp that you pay. Everybody who buys a house here that has a doc stamp. And you pay for that to have your stuff stamped by the clerk. And that money is supposed to go into the Sadowski Trust for affordable housing. 2 years ago, we passed an amendment that said, we want that money to go into the trust to pay for affordable housing. And they still sweep all that money into the General Revenue Fund. So we need to do that. Then there's also the water issue. There's so many issues here in Florida and policies that don't really match them. So tomorrow, or this afternoon, when you sit down to vote, you have to very seriously consider your judicial choices. Don't leave them blank. If you need some information, you can email me and I'll get somebody to send you some information about judge recommendations. Make sure you vote all the way down the ballot, all the way to the soil and water people. And why I'm doing this is for all of us, like Mike said. This is election cycle from August 28th until November 6th is probably the most important elections of our lifetimes. And you guys lived many years longer than I did. But I believe, even coming out of the Depression and World War II and all of the challenges to our civil rights is coming fast and furious these days. And so it's really important for everybody to vote, and we all need to work hard to flip our legislature here in Florida. Certainly our state Senate is flippable, and we need to make sure we get a Democrat there leading our state. We've suffered under the current legislative philosophy for the last 20 years. That's enough. It didn't work. It didn't work. It's enough. Let me just say, on August 2nd, Mr. Hadley has worked very hard with both candidates and streaming live on Facebook, and will be a debate between me and my opponent. Many of you have seen me here before, I know. And it starts at 7:30. But even if you don't start it at 7:30 and you want to see it the 3rd of August, that's okay, it'll still be there. You can still get it. And if you start at 10:08, that's okay too. You'll still be there and it'll start at the beginning. The other thing is, Bonnie is going to have in this room a viewing for the gubernatorial debate on the same night, August the 2nd. So you got many places to go and people to see and things to do. That's pretty cool. And stay politically aware. And you should watch the debate if you haven't decided who you're going to give your vote to. This is a very, very critical election. And thank you so much for having me. I hope when you vote, you put Mindy Koch for House District 81. Thanks so much, you guys. We're going to serve you breakfast now.
Mindy, I have a question.
Have a question.
Me.
Yes, I know.
You
I'm walking away from you because this is not working.
You hit on a number of subjects that are vital, very important. I think that one of the things you must work on is getting rid of texting and telephones in the cars, because it's dangerous. It's like a DUI.
Yes, I agree, and yes, I will. I will work on it. I don't know that they'll buy it, but you know, the conversation, the other side of this conversation goes something like this. Black people get stopped enough in cars. And if they're looking down at their phone or looking down at all while they're driving, this is another excuse to make it a primary offense. This is another excuse to pull over minority people. So there is two sides of this conversation, but I think it's a conversation really worth having. And you know, in New York, you're not allowed to have your phone in your hand while you're driving, right? Well, this is Florida. It takes us a little while. We catch up, but it takes us a little while to get there. So it did come as a piece last legislative session. It didn't pass, but that doesn't mean it won't come up again. Anybody else have questions? I'll be more than happy to try to answer them for you. No? Well, thanks to Stanley, all of you at Century Village. Mike is fabulous. What can I say? Fred has supported us through this process. Thanks so much for coming. The phone number on that colored card, do use it because that's why it's there. Thanks.